Newsline with Noel Thompson and Donna Trainer.
Good evening. Our main story this Tuesday evening.
I'm live in the Wicklow Mountains where search teams are continuing to look for the remains of an IRA victim murdered nearly 3 decades ago.
The family of the IRA murder victim, Danny McElhone, have been waiting 27 years to find out what happened to him. A dig on a stretch of hillside in County Wicklow may provide an answer.
The 19-year-old was abducted from his home in 1981 and his body was secretly buried. Tests are now being carried out to determine whether remains found in the Ballynutter area of the Wicklow Mountains are those of Mr McElhone. Let's go to our Dublin correspondent now, Shane Harrison, who's in Ballynutter near Blessington. Shane.
Donna, I'm here in a wet, remote and windswept part of the Wicklow Mountains. We're about half a mile away from where earlier today about a dozen men and 2 diggers searched for the remains of Daniel McElhone, who was abducted or kidnapped, murdered and then secretly buried by the IRA somewhere here. In 1999 and in 2000, when there were previous searches, we were allowed an awful lot closer. And I can tell you that the search is taking place in raised bogland in what locals call Duffy Hill, not far from a stream. Now this is the latest development in what's been a very long process that could take a lot longer than the 10 years so far. Conor McCauley now reports on one of the darkest stories of the Troubles.
Digging for the disappeared is a sensitive job. So sensitive that these pictures supplied to us by the Disappeared Commission have no sound on them, presumably in case an off-the-cuff remark compromised some part of the information gathering process. To find a body in a vast expanse of this Irish bog was the search team's task. It had looked here before, but not with the technology and expertise available to it now. That made the difference. Danny McElhone is less well known than many of the disappeared. There's no picture of the 19-year-old. His family has never spoken publicly, but in West Belfast, from where he came, people were pleased a body had been found.
Wonderful. It must be terrific for the family. Absolutely thrilled for him.
Everyone that has lost a loved one has a right to have somewhere to pay.
Let's find the body. He's a man with huge experience of this kind of work. He helped find a victim of Moores murderers Myra Hindley and Ian Brady. Sir Ken Bloomfield heads the Disappeared Commission. 10 years on, and with the appointment of Jeff Knupfer, there's a new urgency about its work.
Over time we became conscious that perhaps we should be more proactive. So that was really a step change when we recruited our own expert team. And we are confident that we now have as good a human resource available to deal with as you can imagine.
But it's a tortuous process for those left waiting. Oliver McVeigh's brother Columba still hasn't been found, and the family has had too many knocks to have much confidence that he ever will.
It's hard to tell whether it offers us any hope or not, because in our own particular, my own family's case, the Commission can only work on the information they've received, and obviously in the McElhone situation they've been working on fairly good, accurate information. Now we need more people to come forward. We need all the people to come forward that were involved in all these cases, especially my brother Columba's case. I can't see the reason why they won't come forward. There's no recrimination by any of the families. There will be no prosecutions.
There is a lot of work going on in bogs and on hillsides. In some cases, the men who pulled the trigger walking the ground where they buried their victims. The disappeared reflects badly on the Republican movement, and they want it resolved.
Even as I speak, Republicans continue to work on this issue, continue to visit sites, meet regularly with the experts, and are doing all that can be done to bring closure to the families involved.
It'll take weeks now for DNA testing to establish if the body found is that of Danny McElhone, the teenager snatched from the streets of his native city 27 years ago and secreted in a Wicklow bog. Conor McCauley, BBC Newsline.
Well away, but what are the latest things that you're being told?
Well, the latest I can tell you is that the search for this evening has ended. It will resume tomorrow with daylight. We do know that special dogs, cadaver dogs, are being used in this particular search. What is happening is they're digging holes every half metre or so. The dogs are then being brought to see whether or not they're able to sniff any human remains. Those dogs will be back tomorrow. What we do know from the Commission is that this search will go on for as long as it has to. In 1999 and in 2000 the search lasted for several weeks, but that happened during the summer months when there was an awful lot more daylight than there is now.
Just remind us, Shane, what we know about Danny McElhone's murder.
Well, we know that he was a teenager who was kidnapped by the IRA in 1981. As for the circumstances of his death, were really largely dependent on an IRA statement issued to An Phoblacht, that's the Republican newspaper, in 2002, August 2002. And in that statement, the IRA said that they did not murder him because he was an informer, that they were questioning him about the theft of weapons, and that he got involved in a struggle with one of those who was guarding him, and he died as a result of that. We also know that his remains were brought here to be buried somewhere in the mountain behind me.
We don't know, of course, Shane, if these remains will turn out to bring closure for the McElhone family, but is there any indication that more information will lead to more digs being carried out?
Well, obviously this is a sign that would bring great hope to other families. What we know is that the search team is continuing to look at other sites, but they are dependent on getting new information to see whether or not they can engage in the big dig that is now taking place at other sites.
Shane, in the darkness of the Wicklow Mountains, thank you very much indeed.